In this lesson, we're going to composite our liquid refraction and do a few last-minute tweaks, and we'll be all finished. So let's begin by reading in our normals pass, and let's come down here and hit R and navigate to images. I saved mine here, and let's take a look at these normals. So let's go to the normals, and we have the red. Let's go to a part where we actually have a ripple. The red is the U, and the blue channel is the V. Green channel is, I'm not really sure. We don't actually need the green channel, but you'll notice that in the red and green channels we don't actually have any alpha at all. So what we need to do is pre-multiply that by the alpha of the RGB. So let's go pre-mult, and we want to multiply the normals channel by the alpha. So that's good. Now what we want to do is soften these normals a little bit by blurring them, maybe just 2 pixels. And then what we want to do is shuffle them into the stream. So let's add in the shuffle copy. So from 1 into the 2. And what we want to do is take the normals, and we want to put them into the normal. But red is red, and blue is actually green. So we want blue here. And for the blue channel, we can just have that black because there's no useful information. So if we now look at this shuffle copy and have a look at the normals, we should see that in the red channel and the green channel we have the information, the U and V normals, as opposed to in our read node in the normals where we had it in red and blue, and the green was useless. So what we want to do now is distort this footage based on our normals, and we can do that with iDistort node. Let's come back to RGB, and let's go to a bit where the button is pressed, and let's distort all channels based off of the normals. We can see there was a little bit of distortion there. We could scale up the distortion, or what we can also do is grade up. So let's grade these after the pre-mult. Let's gain it, and what we want to do is choose the normals. So we've gained at 5, let's scale at 5. And we can see we are indeed getting our ripple effect. Very cool. Now this ripple effect is actually taking place on the desk. Technically that wouldn't be correct. You'd only have the ripple effect on the pixels, but I actually think it creates a more interesting looking sort of futuristic effect if somehow whatever this keyboard was able to add its little refraction to the desk, even though the desk is a real surface and not projected. So this doesn't really make as much sense, or is less lifelike, but I think it looks cooler, so therefore it wins. We do have a little problem with the alpha of the normals, so before pre-multing we can erode the alpha. Let's go -2 pixels to get rid of that. And let's just put this all in one stream. Now I think the pixels are a little bit sharp in comparison to the rest of the image, so after we render these, I'm going to add in a soften. And that's a little bit strong, although that's probably more realistic. I want to get a little bit of the clarity back. Go 0.35, even though the camera probably wouldn't be able to pick up this much detail. I just like the look of it. And something else we definitely need to do is place the rotor of the hand. So let's go down to the very bottom of our stream, and if we go to read and go into assets, I've rotoed the hand. Now this is from the original sequence, so we'll have a bit of retiming to do. So let's add in a time offset, And let's just go A over B for now, or A plus B, just so we can see what's going on here. Let's go plus, and because everything else was starting at frame 1 and this is starting at frame 183, it will probably be minus 182. Now this was also rotoed at the original format size, so let's add in a reformat. Okay, that looks good. So what we want to now do is grab the original footage and multiply these two together, and then pipe that back into the stream. So let's go A times B. Multiply. And then A over B instead of plus. Now that didn't really work, and the reason for that is because this doesn't have an alpha channel. So what we want to do is in here, go auto alpha, and still no alpha channel. So what we might want to do is just shuffle in the red channel. As we can see, we have red, green, and blue, but no alpha. So let's shuffle the red channel into the alpha channel. So now we have an alpha channel. So this should now make the over operation work. Very good. One other thing I'd like to do is brighten this up a little bit more. So let's go back to the grade. Let's try 55, 60, 70 even. That looks better. And what we can do now is add in some glows. I really like glows. I tried to refrain from making them over the top, so let's try and be very sensible. Let's add in a glow. And let's set the tolerance to 1 so that it's not going to affect the low dynamic range footage. It's only going to affect the LCD, and I'm going to make the width 1, make the brightness 0.1, and now I'm just going to duplicate it and make the width 2, duplicate it, make the width 4, duplicate it, make the width 8, duplicate it. As you can see, I'm doubling it every single time. And you'll probably know all these numbers because they're quite familiar. And I'll probably cap it at 512. So that's an interesting looking glow. That was before, that was after. It's quite subtle, but it has a lot of hue to it, a lot of saturation. Might not be the most CPU efficient way to glow, but I like the look that it gives. And one other thing I'd like to do before we finish this off is add in some color correction. And I'm going to add in a hue correct, a hue shift. And what I would like to do is just shift the red axis. Let's go -10 rotation. So that was before and that's after. I don't really like this I don't know why, it just looks quite green, even though we definitely have a lot more red in it than green, but I just much prefer this color. It's a much more pleasant color, I think. And overall, let's see, maybe even -13. I think there's quite a lot of saturation in this shot, maybe a bit too much, so we can take the overall saturation down, but this is only affecting the red channel, so we'll add a separate one for this. So add another hue shift and take the overall saturation down to maybe 0.9. So it was fairly simple color correction, but I just much prefer the look that this is giving. Now what we need to do is reintroduce the lens distortion. And we can do this in NUKE using the PF Barrel plugin. Unfortunately, it's excessively CPU intensive. It takes about 10 times longer than it does inside of PFTrack. So what I might do is actually just write this out and then reintroduce the lens distortion in PFTrack. Otherwise, you can reintroduce the lens distortion using just this here, but if you want to exactly reintroduce the lens distortion that we initially took out, you'll need to use the PFTrack settings. So let's write this out. We have an 8-bit image, and we'll put this in the renders. So we'll call this our UI distorted dot TIFF, and this will be an 8-bit LZW, and let's render this. Alrighty, in PFTrack I've just imported the render that we just rendered out of NUKE, and what we want to do is grab the values from this undistort node. So first let's just right click and add in an add distortion node, and then basically we just take these values here, copy and paste, and we were measuring high order distortion as well, so undistort and grab the high order, and there we have it. The distortion has been perfectly reintroduced. That's the end of this series. I hope you've enjoyed following along and learned a thing or two. See you next time.